Hello and welcome to this edition of Rinkside Digest. I'm your host Kirk Day, along with my co-host Byrne and Nick Miller. And in this video, we're going to be talking about what we could see happen for the Anaheim Ducks next. Going into the draft, free agency, and this offseason, they got a lot of stuff they got to have a look at. You know, we got the second overall pick. They got some big free agents on this team. You know, they got Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, Jamie Drysdale. We're going to be talking about all of that, what they need to do about these players in this video. But make sure to subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss out some stuff we got coming up with the draft and free agency. A lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Very exciting stuff. You won't want to miss it. But right now, we are going to pose the question to ourselves, what is next for the Anaheim Ducks? You know, like I just said, they have the second overall pick and a plethora of draft picks actually this year. They got 3 in the second round, which is a lot. So it's just going to be, you know, this is a 99.99% chance that this man right here, Adam Fantilli, will be the second overall pick going to the Anaheim Ducks. I can't see him not going there, to be honest with you. But this is almost a certainty. Like this was a big addition to the Anaheim Ducks team, who already have a lot of prospects with, or not prospects, I should say stars. If Trevor Zegras, Mason McTavish, Jamie Drysdale, Lukas Dostal in net, who will be the future of their goaltending, I believe. And they got a lot coming, you know. And you can see here with their picks, they have a lot of them. You know, they got 3 second-round picks this year. Next year, they have 3 third-round picks, 2 second-round picks this next year. And, well, obviously this beloved second overall pick this year. But Nick and Noah, let me know, what do you guys think they could do with these picks? Because obviously they can make some selections. You know, we know how deep of a draft this is. But do you really think they'll use all of these second-round picks on draft picks in the second round this year? Or do you think they might move a couple here or there for some players, or try even move up to the first round?
Yeah, I think like you said, they have an absolute boatload of prospects over there in Anaheim. So I don't necessarily doesn't necessarily mean they won't use those picks, but I'd love for them to trade them for future picks, like maybe get a 2024 first rounder or a 2024 second rounder even. You never know what that could be come down the road. So I think, you know, Anaheim has some massive decisions to make this summer, which we'll dive into a little bit more, I guess, as the video goes along. But I think a smart decision would be to trade it for futures.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna talk about the second overall pick first. I think they've got 2 options when it comes to that pick, and I know like 2 options sounds like too many when you got Adam Fantilli going second, but I think that they also could pick Michkov as well. I'm really high on this guy, guys. I'm not gonna stop talking about it until it happens. I'm not gonna stop talking about it until the draft. But Michkov, like, you wait a couple of years for him to come over, and he's going to be a stud over here in the NHL. Like, look at Kaprizov over there. Now, although Kaprizov wasn't as high of a pick or even close, but at the same time, like, I think Adam Fantilli would be a great pick. Anytime you got a guy that's compared to Nathan MacKinnon going second overall, that's disgusting right there. Like, that's oh, my God. But so I think that's what they could do. They have 2 options with those. All the same, if they do pick Fantilli, they're going to have to move McTavish to the left wing or something. Like they're gonna have to do that because they can't have one of those guys playing third line center. It just can't happen. Like you got to have those guys in your top 6. Now, if you did have them playing down there, I mean that'd be pretty crazy as well. Give you some depth through the lineup. But at the same time, now the second round picks. I think that this year where the draft is so deep, I think a lot of teams will be hesitant to move their first round pick. But if they're not, you could trade a couple of those picks up to get another first in this draft, which would be absolutely phenomenal to move up in this draft. Like maybe even Detroit or they call Detroit about their 17th or something like that, and they include another player that wants out that could help Detroit or something. Because if you trade up to that 17th spot, we talked about the talent in the other video about how much talent is there and how many players you could pick and some underrated players you could pick. I really do think that they'll end up doing that and moving into the first round if the teams are willing to move it.
Yeah, one thing to note as well, their second round pick, the one that Anaheim owns themselves, is the second overall pick in the second round. So that's basically a late first. It's like it's 34th overall, you know. There are still going to be some guys that will drop out of the first round that we probably won't expect. I mean, it's always happened. Every year. We had Brad Lambert last year drop out of the first round. Was he last pick in the first round, or was he second round?
He was very, very late.
Yeah, I know he dropped a lot from when we thought he was going to go, which, I mean, you never know who that happens this year, because we have so many good players in this draft. For like we've always said in every video pretty much since we've been starting to talk about the draft. After 5 or 6, it's a mix. Really, anybody can go anywhere. It depends on who the team wants. So with that pick, they might be able to move up even to a higher position, like you said, Nick, with 17 at Detroit. Maybe they try and go for 9 with Anaheim, if they give them another prospect, because we know how deep their prospect is. Give them that pick as well, and maybe another one of the second-round picks. You never know. They might be able to move stuff, because they have a lot of stuff that I think they'll be able to move. They probably want to move, because I don't think you want too many prospects. I know they're in a rebuild, but you don't want too many, because then you're just going to overflow. You're going to have some contract issues down the line where you have to re-sign them all in the same group of years of 2 or 3 year span. And we know how unappetizing that is for a GM. You don't want that. You want to spread out your contracts, but you want to have as big of a window as possible.
Another thing I wanted to say here is I was just thinking about Detroit, and another thing Detroit could use would be a goaltender. And who do the Anaheim Ducks have in net? John Gibson, who's locked up for the next, I think it's 3-4 years, something like that. Yeah, so exactly. So Detroit could use a goaltender over there. I know they got what's his name?
Sebastian Casa.
And Sebastian Casa, yeah.
They've got those guys, but Anaheim doesn't really need John Gibson right now. And I'm not sure Detroit needs many more high picks, as they've got a pretty rich prospect pool themselves. So that's something to watch out for sure.
John Gibson will be traded this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that conversation, though, we have a lot of re-signing to do. They got Lukas Dostal, who could probably be a starting goalie. But like you said, you might want that experience as John Gibson getting over to Detroit to mentor Sebastian Casa for the few years he has left on his contract. But as you can see right here, this is the cap space, the projected cap space the Anaheim Ducks have going into the offseason here. It's $39 million. And they're going to need it, let's just say that. You can see here as well, down at the bottom, you have Maxime Comtois, Troy Terry, and Trevor Zegras all needing to be re-signed, as well as on the defense. You can see the big name there, Jamie Drysdale and Lukas Dostal. Those, I think, are the main ones that they're going to have to re-sign, as it's a must that these guys get re-signed. I would say lock them up long-term as well. Maxime Comtois, he probably won't be wanting as much as he originally would have a couple of years ago when he was a prospect, but we know that these guys are big names, big part of the core that the Anaheim Ducks have. And you got to watch your salary as well, because these guys are going to want a lot of money, but then you also have McTavish in a few years, so you're going to have to re-sign as well. So what do you guys think about this group of players they're going to have to re-sign, and what you might see in free agency from them?
Well, they got a big summer ahead of them, plain and simple, right? That's two of their faces of their franchise there in Drysdale and Zegras. And I think, obviously the draft is a big importance for them, but I think the next important thing for them is to lock these guys up long term, like you said. We've seen Caulfield got a kind of very, very good contract. I think you're going to see Trevor Zegras in that sort of ballpark. As for Jamie Drysdale, I think I don't know, because he just had, I'm not sure what exact injury was, but I know he's out pretty long term. So I think you might see a bridge deal done with Jamie Drysdale, maybe a 2 or 3 year at $2 or $3 million. But he's your rock on defense for Anaheim, and I think they need to get him figured out.
Yeah, they're pretty rich in the prospect pool, and I've got to say, for the contract for Troy Terry, I think you said it with Trevor Zegras. He's going to get a pretty rich contract as well. Yeah. I can see him anywhere between the 7.5 and 8.5, where Caulfield got 7.8. I can see him anywhere around that range. I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards 8.5, where he's such a valuable player. He plays center and all that stuff, but and he's also very flashy. It also brings in fans and more money, obviously, if you're doing stuff flashy every game. But I also think we got to mention Troy Terry as well. He's going to get his. Troy Terry is going to get a bag, and I think we have to take that into account too, because $39 million sounds like a lot. It's really not when you start signing close dollar deals with these players that are, which you need to do. You need to sign those players to big contracts, and I mean, obviously not too much. You got to be good at negotiating. I mean, don't pull a Kyle Dubas or anything like that with all those guys. But at the same time, you need to pay them. You need to keep them around, because if you don't keep them around, nobody's going to want to play there. You're not going to have any fans around going to your games and whatever. And I think Anaheim is going to prioritize this as they need to after the draft.
Yeah, that is another big thing that you guys mentioned about a John Gibson potential trade this offseason. You see, he's making $6.4 million. That would be a nice contract to get off the table to be able to re-sign these guys, as well as Lukas Dostal, if you do trust him to be a starting goalie right now, even if you might want to get someone in free agency. Because free agency, I'm not going to name too many names here, but we got some pretty good players that you might want to add to this team. A few veterans, get some some experience around these young guys, because this is not a very old team at all. There's not very many veterans on this team whatsoever. And I think that is a big part in these guys' growth, because you don't want them just out there learning themselves. You want that experience. Just a guy, for example, bring Corey Perry back for a year, if you don't retire.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love it.
Like someone like that's been around the game for ages that can just help these guys along their way, because they're not going to be any playoff team yet. We don't expect that. I don't think anybody expects that, because we know they have the second overall pick, which means they were terrible this year. But, they're getting better. The team is looking good. It's looking forward, and I'm excited to see what they do in this offseason because, like you said, Noah, it's a very, very big one for them. They got a lot of stuff to think about draft-wise, free agency-wise, some trades maybe what you see happen, like with John Gibson. But this team is looking good, I got to say. They got the prospect pool they want. They've got a pretty decent lineup right now without the injuries, if McTavish was in there and everything. They don't got a bad lineup for that Pacific Division, but we'll see what happens. We got lots of time. We got about 2 weeks until the draft here, and then free agency after.
One more thing I want to touch on before you end the video. They do have a very high prospect who I'm very, very high on in Olin Zellweger, who 9 chances out of 10 will make the jump next year. I am 100% confident in that.
Yeah, for those enjoying the Canada World Juniors, we know that we like this guy. He's a good player.
Yeah.
I just want to say as well, I forgot that Detroit has Ville Husso for the next 2 years as well.
Right, yeah. The Minnesota Wild playoff killer.
It might not be as easy to acquire John Gibson. You got a really crowded crease there. You got a few guys coming up. I mean, I know Ville Husso is not as great as he was when he signed the contract, but at the same time, he's still there. He's still on the cap, and you're not going to be able to acquire another $6 million that easily. I'm not really sure what Detroit's cap situation is, but I'm sure we'll have a video on Detroit pretty soon anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, there's a lot of teams in the first round that have multiple first round picks. A lot of teams looking for a goalie, so you might see a move there. John Gibson, he's a fantastic goalie still. It's just not his fault that he's on a bad team. There's not much you can do when you're in his position. No defense in front of you. You can't be expected to stop every shot that comes in against someone that's coming in on a 3-on-1, 3-on-2, 2-on-1 all the time. But we're going to see what happens, John Gibson might get moved maybe before the trade deadline, before the draft, sorry. We'll see what happens maybe. We don't know yet. We're only speculating, but that's what we got for this video. That's our ideas. Let us know what you think down below. If you might see what you think Anaheim might do, if you think they might pick someone else in the draft, something else like that. Let us know. Hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to like the video. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff. A few more teams coming down as well. We got some more stuff coming, with draft content and all that stuff. Especially with this Anaheim second overall pick. You won't want to miss what we got to see about that. So make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like the video. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good night.